I don't even like remember the food I had because I was just so genuinely sick and ill. So I'm Liz, also known as Elisabeth Lyngset, and I'm from Norway. I am currently taking a bachelor's degree in media, more specifically television and radio production. And yeah, this is my third semester here at Mercy and in the US in general, and it's been fun so far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to know what was like the final straw with Mercy and to have you make this petition.
Um, well, oh my God, the thing about the food situation on this campus is that even like since the first semester that I came here, I was like not essentially very happy with the like options we had, because as a residential student, like you basically have one meal plan that you are forced to pay, and like on the outside, like it looks good, like you get 19 swipes a week, you have an all-you-can-eat restaurant, there's two different cafes. So as an international student and like not knowing much about like the area or like the US in general, I was like, I think that sounds like a good choice. But then um having seen the food like be so inconsistent and like with no variety, it's kind of just been like the slow buildup of annoyance and irritation, that kind of just like ultimately led me to be very unhappy with the food situation, as well as like a lot of other people, and a lot of my friends as well. And kind of like the last straw for me was definitely this semester. I've been living on my own in Founders in a single dorm, and been super busy with school, and like when something as like important as nutrition like isn't there to like support you in your like academics and just like life in general, like it kind of just like it's so tough on the mental. So definitely just like seeing the food still be the same after so long, and having been here for a couple of semesters now, I kind of just figured that it's kind of now or never, especially for me since I'm going to be graduating in like not too long. So yeah, it's kind of just been like a slow build up essentially.
Yeah. And what are
Yeah.
maybe like the really specific like bad experiences you've had with maybe food quality, way it was cooked, way it was presented, served?
One of the main things that like is a reoccurring issue, I find, especially with when it comes to the Hudson Cafe, which is the all-you-can-eat one,
Yeah.
is that like whenever you get like a hamburger or like anything like meat related or anything that needs to be processed properly, a lot of the time it's just like it's red on the inside or it's burnt on the outside, or both simultaneously. The food that they put out each day for like variety is just kind of the same food over and over. Bland rice, just dry vegetables, and lack of items. The bread section, cereal section, salad section, sometimes it's just like it's just been out and it's just there the entire day. um you know it, Ultimately there's so many different issues that are consistently happening, especially with like over and undercooking, and just like the blandness of it, like the taste in and of itself just isn't good. And chicken too, like like something that's very like important to cook properly, is like there's been so many times where it's been like red on the inside, just like genuinely like, okay, I can't eat this because I will become sick.
Right.
um yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
Right. And has that been an issue with you with the food where you have become sick from it?
Yes, actually, I think it was the second semester I lived here. I had this was back when they didn't have the chicken tenders, but the chicken nuggets.
Mm.
I remember I hadn't had anything like special that day, and then I went to Hudson to get a meal. I got like fries and those nuggets, and when I was there, like I was kind of I ate them, and I thought to myself like, okay, these kind of taste weird, and I'm not like a fan of the texture, so I'm like, what was going on? And so I just remember I was so nauseous that entire night, and I remember also like it just led to me throwing up, or like me like making myself throw up because I was just so nauseous.
Yeah.
And there literally just is no other explanation than that being the reason. Because, initially I thought I was sick or something, but like nothing happened after. Like it was kind of just like a one and done. Like if I feel ill,
Right.
and yeah, like that's like been one of the experiences. And other than that, like, or like especially since that, I've like avoided eating anything that looks remotely suspicious, just to like try to avoid getting ill. So to me, it's happened like maybe once or twice. But also, I'm just very cautious about, like, I always look all the time at like what I eat to make sure that it's not like blatantly raw.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was like the worst time. It was just so, like, the nausea was crazy, and I felt ill like for the rest of the week, and just like, oh
Oh my
yeah,
God. Awful.
yeah, that's
I
lovely.
remember, yeah. I remember this semester as well. You had food
Yeah.
poisoning. Was that also from Mercy or that was from Mercy?
I assume it was, and that was like that's like the worst time I've been ill here, and I just assume it was. I don't even like remember the food I had because I was just so genuinely sick and ill.
Yeah.
But it usually it stems from the Hudson Cafe, because the Vic Cafe, it's like it's the same menu over and over, and you kind of know what you're gonna be getting.
Yeah.
And usually I don't get like much like meat or stuff from that cafe. But yeah, I did have food poisoning, and it was just super bad for like 3 to 4 days. And yeah, like it could have been anything, but like again, I don't eat anywhere, or like at that time I didn't eat off campus at all. So it's like, it kind of has to be from here. Yeah.
Right. Oh wow. Oh my God. And have
Yeah.
you had any like also like maybe similar bad experiences with Victory? I know you said it's like a set menu, so it's kind of like less of a chance, but maybe with
Yeah.
Victory and even maybe the Starbucks on campus.
So the Starbucks, not so much initially, just because I usually just get drinks. There has been a time or two where I've gotten like a like kind of like something that seems like spoiled milk, but nothing crazy, and nothing that I've actually gotten ill from. But when it comes to Vic, I used to get like chicken salads a lot, but the chicken there is, I will say, like 7 out of 10 times I go there, it's just like gray or completely just like weird looking. So like I used to get like chicken salads a lot before, but then like there was this one time where, again, I kept looking at my food to make sure that what I was eating wasn't bad, and then like it was just super gray, and ever since I've kind of just become like a grilled cheese girly. Yeah, just try to literally eat bread and cheese to try to eliminate any form of like food poisoning.
Right.
Which is such a healthy healthy way of living. Love
Yeah.
that.
No protein.
Yeah, no protein, just grilled cheese. Like, it's so bad.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
wow. Oh my God. Basically becoming a vegetarian at that point.
Oh, well, yeah, like an involuntary vegetarian. Like, I'm
Right.
not even joking. At one point, I was like, oh, I actually haven't had meat in like 3 weeks. Like, I'm basically
Oh
halfway
my
there.
God.
Yeah, I ate smoothies and grilled cheeses, and I was like, oh, this is the life. And a couple of fries at Hudson, and I was like, yeah, this
Yeah.
is great.
Wow. And
Yeah.
that makes you think too about students who are athletes who really do need like a lot of protein. How do you think that kind
Yeah.
of affects them?
I've thought about this a lot of the time, or like I've thought about this several times, because, given that they have so many practices, and like they literally need like energy and like to be able to perform as athletes for the school. Like it's just like and also get I see them in there all the time. Like almost every time I go to Hudson, there's always like an athlete team or something between practices. And it just like makes me kind of sad, because like I know I'm not happy with the food, and I know a lot of people aren't happy with the food. So like, what are they doing when they're forced to go to there to eat? And I just can't imagine, especially like the protein aspect of it, as you mentioned. Like getting that protein from meat and whatnot. Like, what do you do when it's not prepared properly? And when it doesn't taste good and it's not appetizing? Like what source of energy are you going to be getting?
Right.
So yeah, I really do feel for them, honestly, because it's sometimes when you go in there too, there's just nothing there. So like what are they even gonna eat? Like it's like a bagel or a salad, which isn't even good energy for working out like that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And sort of going back to like your petition, I think one of the main points of it was about this meal plan, the fact that you can
Yeah.
only choose the one as a dormer and it's very expensive. So how do
Yes.
you think that's kind of affected your spending, your lifestyle, and other students?
So, the meal plan in and of itself, like the concept of it, is good for the price. Like, say that the food there was good, and we had 19 snacks a week, and we were using all of them because the food is good. It's the price isn't bad given that it's New York. But the problem is very like um, obvious when people aren't happy with said food. So for me, this semester especially, I used to dorm with another person. Like I had a roommate,
Mhm.
and it made it very hard to like indulge in food off campus. Because if you spend a lot of money on food off campus, they're gonna be like, oh, you're getting food again. Like, how are you having this money? And like, what's going on? Like, why aren't you eating here? So this semester, especially living alone and just having kind of like free reign, um, it's been weird because you wake up and you're like, okay, I don't feel like eating anywhere on this campus. What am I gonna do? And that thought being repeated every single day over and over and over, you're like, okay, at this point, like I'm just gonna order something off campus, even though I don't really like afford, like I can't even do this, but I have to because like,
Yeah.
what else am I gonna do? So for me, like my spending habits this semester have been like way more than I like anticipated, and like that like was in my budget essentially.
Yeah.
I've spent so much more money on food off campus than I should have, and that I needed to. Um, and also like from like my personal experience, like I struggle a lot with like just food and like food addiction and food disorders and stuff like that. And like being in a situation where, especially like being in, for me, like being international in a country where you have so much option of like fast food and da 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 da, and the campus like has food that isn't good for me. Like I feel like I'm wasting my money here, and there's also so many opportunities around me to just get crappy food, fast food. So yeah, this semester like I have not at all utilized my swipes as much as I should because I don't want to eat on campus, and I've used so much more money than I should have on like DoorDash or Uber Eats or whatever. And it just like it became this like horrible cycle of just eating out when I shouldn't, and like losing money on other stuff that I should have been budgeting. And it's just been like this crappy circle going around and around. And from what I've heard from people that live there as well, like a lot of people, Uber Eats or order food off campus. There was even like this poll because there are there are Instagram accounts like dedicated to the food around here,
Hmm.
around campus, and like one of them even ran a poll asking like, so how many times a week do people order food off campus? And like I think 3 to 5 times a week was like the most picked option. Which
Wow.
like if you're paying 2 grand a semester for food, that should cover like your everyday needs. Like there's no reason to be ordering food 3 to 5 times a week. So yeah, it's been a crazy semester,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you kind of touched upon a point that I wanted to ask you about. Do you think these issues with dining at Bercy, do you think it could lead students to potentially some eating issues or maybe even body image issues?
Um, Absolutely, and I'm saying that because for me, it 100% has. Um, like I've never had like a massive issue like talking about like weight loss or weight gain or whatever. So like I don't care about that.
Mhm.
So like for me, like I was on a good roll. I was eating healthy and I was kind of like feeling decent about myself. But like living on campus and having the food there be so like disappointing again and again, it definitely for me has led to going down some horrible paths of just like revisiting like a food addiction I've had for years. I don't even know how long, and like kind of getting into the habit of ordering things and eating bad. And that directly affects body image and how I function from day to day. And I can genuinely say that like this semester I like my like the depression I've had has been just like so massive. And worse than it has been for a while now. And I can't tie all of that obviously to like just like the dining or like the meal plan in and of itself, but like it is definitely one of the big things that led me to feel the way I did and kind of just spiral the way I did. And, as someone who struggles with like binge eating, I can only imagine what someone who struggles kind of like with the opposite, like if they don't like the food there, I assume it would be so easy for them to just, not eat that day or, just like skip it because, oh, I don't feel like eating it, like da 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 da. So I assume there's a lot of people who struggle with the same things, whether it be binge eating or not eating. It's just I obviously don't know like the percentage of how many people do this or have this issue, but speaking as someone who has struggled with this, it's definitely there. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like such an important aspect, I think, to all of this, because
Yeah.
it all just stems back to the nutrition for students. What are they getting? And also,
Mm.
how is it affecting them mentally and physically? How
Mm.
are they feeling? What are they
Yeah.
struggling with? Maybe because of it, or maybe just as part of it. So
Yeah.
I think it's really like great that you really touched upon that and we got to talk about that, because I think
Yeah.
that like people may not think of, you know.
Yeah, because like when you think of like just like meal plan in college, like the first thought someone like you don't assume people are like going to be talking about eating disorders,
Right.
but when you live someplace, or like when you live in the same place for 3.5 months straight in a semester, and you live on campus in the same room with the same people over and over, like having those bad routines and like that bad environment around you, it takes a toll on you. And like kind of like tying that together with the meal plan, like if you're not satisfied with something and it's like continuously being a negative impact on you, like it's gonna impact you essentially. So yeah, I haven't heard many people talk about it, but I also feel like it's kind of hard to talk about for a lot of people
Yeah.
because I mean, it is for me. Like I don't love admitting the fact that like, oh, I eat way more now because like I don't like the food on campus, but like it is what it is, and I feel like it's important to talk about because I know that for me that has been a massive issue, and I assume I'm not the only one. So yeah.
Yeah. And what has kind of been Mercy's reaction to like sharing these issues with Mercy and like the struggles that maybe students are going through with it?
So I brought this whole thing up like almost well, actually more than a year ago now. I brought it up the first semester I lived here. I was like, hey, I talked to my RD, my residential director, and I said to her like, hey, I don't like this meal plan. Is there any way I can opt out of it? And she basically told me that no, this isn't an option. It is what it is, and there's like a policy tied to it. So I kind of just like sucked it up back then. And the following people that I've contacted have either been like managers of like a specific cafe because of something that happened, or just like the most recent person I talked to was like an operations manager, and it's been kind of like a mixed review kind of thing. I do feel like Mercy in and of itself, like they have very helpful staff, but when it comes to stuff like this that's so hard to, or allegedly that is very hard to like come to life, it does feel like students aren't heard properly, which also it kind of is why I started this petition, because when I have brought this up in the past, I've just been one individual kind of, speaking my case. And, I refuse to believe that I was the only one that like was unhappy with the situation. But the more recent feedback I've gotten is that, they are trying to open up a conversation with people higher up to see what they can do for, the meal plans and also just like the dining in and of itself. So, like it does feel like they're giving me and other students hope, but it also does kind of feel like it's just kind of empty words at the moment, because it is very like, it feels very corporate, like more than it needs to be. Like I get it, like it's a student administration like interaction, but given the fact that this is something that affects a lot of students on such a personal level, I do feel like it would have been good having or being heard a little bit sooner than now, especially given that the food has been so like inconsistent for so long. But like I try to just stay positive through it all, and like I appreciate the people that have been open to talk about this, like directors and managers and whatnot. So yeah, I'm kind of just hoping that from here on out, there's like an open dialogue and kind of just easy to talk about this, and kind of a transparency from the administration to students.
Right.
But yeah, mixed reviews is kind of like the summary of this, I would say. Yeah.
And I know that Orla too, recently, the head of facility, she did, speak with you and kind of invited you onto some sort of committee for like the cafeteria.
Yes.
How has that been going, or any updates with that?
So the only update from me, I know that they had a meeting, I think it was this Tuesday, but since I've been back home, like obviously I couldn't attend, but I am going to be on this committee for the next semester. And yeah, that's kind of the only update I do have, because it hasn't been started yet, essentially. So yeah, I just think like a bunch of students are gonna, or like not a bunch, but like students are gonna join this committee and talk about like the meal and dining experiences openly, which is good, because I do feel like, given that we are the people that live here all the time, like students should absolutely voice their concerns instead of just like sitting and holding them in, and then it like being a bigger case than what it needs to be. So yeah, I am looking forward to being on that committee and kind of see where that takes us.
Yeah, and I think that's so great that she asked you as well and was able to talk to you about it,
Yeah.
Other students on there. I think that's a really good start.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is there anything else that maybe you'd like to add that we missed? Maybe just about your experience in the cafeteria, about the petition?
Well, like experience in it, like I feel like the people that work there, like in the cafeterias, are like overall of like great people, very accommodating. So that's been a very positive thing, because like you have to separate kind of like the managing from like who's actually in the dining halls. So they've been very, like the majority of them are very positive and happy. And I guess like as far as this petition goes, I basically just started it to kind of bring, or kind of show Mercy and the administration that like, here is the number of people that aren't happy with the current system, and we would like to open up a conversation about revamping it. And having talked to Orla about this, it's good to have like a set number of people to be like, hey, like we don't know, like know what to do in order to like help us get through this. So given that the current meal plan derived from the student body voting, and like I assume it was like a survey or something after COVID, since they were so accommodating to students back then, like I'm kind of just hoping that they're gonna keep that same energy for students now, because like we're out of the pandemic, or like not out of the pandemic obviously, but like like we are more functioning since like 2021, or so seeing that we are in person now more than ever, and we have different wants than the student body did years ago, and I'm just kind of hoping that this will lead to choices. Essentially, that's like the only thing, well, not the only thing, but that's like the biggest thing that I wanted out of this. It's just like it's not that I want to like change the entire dining system. It's just like we want the choice between the meal plans, because a lot of other schools in the area have them. And yeah, I think that's kind of what I had.
Yeah, I think that was such a great point as well, what you just brought up, like the difference in our classes to the classes before us.
Yeah,
the different wants and needs with the food, and
exactly.
You need to keep up with each new class that's coming in.
Yeah, because people are graduating obviously, and we aren't the same student body that was years ago. And given that we have now been, experiencing this new, especially with Hudson, we have been experiencing this new like all you can eat situation, because just a couple of years ago they didn't even have that. It was like kind of like a fixed meal situation.
Yeah.
So since we are currently experiencing and just seeing how this works, like hearing our feedback should be valuable to them, to make Mercy as appealing to everyone as possible, especially for residential students, given that we live there, obviously.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing with all of us and just being, brave enough to even start this change, such an important
Yeah.
issue. Yeah. So thank you.
Of course, I just think it's like it's almost been weird that no one else has kind of spoken like heavier about this publicly. And it's not like I'm like taking the torch to like start something. It's just more like I know that a lot of people are unsatisfied, me included. So it was kind of just like a thing that the kind of a straw that broke the camel's back. Like something's got to be done, and I think good things can come out of this, both for students and for Mercy. Um, so yeah, hopefully something happens.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
thank you for being the voice of the people. And thank you everyone for watching. So yeah.
Yes, ma'am.